I'm the spec lead for MVC 1.0. I'm an executive committee member in the JCB, as well as an expert group member for Java security, which is JSR 375. I'm also a Java champion and a NetBeans Dream Team member. I'm leading the Java user group in Malmö. And in my day job, I work as a principal consultant at a consultant company called Cybercom in Sweden. I am Norwegian, but I'll live and work out of Sweden. So what I'll go through today is the JSR 371 status, and then I'll introduce MVC 1.0 and go through some demos and samples and show you what's going on there. Anybody tried out MVC 1.0? Okay, so everything is new. And are Java developers, Java EE, JAX-RS? You know JAX-RS? Yeah. Anyone using Spring MVC? Okay, yeah. So you'll see that this is kind of similar to Spring MVC. So first about JSR 371, the status there. How many know this? Are you Java community process members? Anyone? Okay, that's today's career tip is to go into jcb.org and become a member. An associate member there, it costs nothing. It doesn't require any signature from your employer, but it gives you a vote there to go in there and influence what's going on in Java and Java EE ecosystem. So that's a good tip. Go in there and browse around and become a member. It's just a click and an electronic signature and you're there and you can vote. So in Java EE, 8 has been kind of delayed for a pretty long time, and MVC was one of the specifications that were kind of without any progress for a very long time. Luckily, we had some expert members that were continuing to do work, even though the spec lead didn't do anything or support us very much. So at Java 1 last year, Oracle proposed their roadmap for Java EE 8. And among them, you can see that MVC 1.0 is proposed to be dropped. So it's there, it's on, yeah. So they proposed to drop MVC 1.0 among JMSN management. And it was kind of interesting because the same second, more or less, they announced that they were dropping MVC, traffic started on Twitter. And people were upset about it. Why are you doing this? Why are you dropping MVC? I mean, we need it, we want it. It's such a popular specification. And the previous study, community service, showed that everybody wants it. But the reasoning from Oracle, and I can agree with them partly, but the reasoning why MVC is dropped is that Cloud Apps often shipped headless. I mean, everybody's using REST APIs and JavaScript client, right? And single page applications. So that kind of makes MVC irrelevant. Well, this is true, but it's also true that there are still a market out there for server-side rendered web applications. And MVC is kind of filling a gap in the Java EE platform that isn't there. So the reason why we were kind of upset with Oracle and we started influencing with Twitter and social media and talking to people at Java 1, the community kind of wants MVC anyway, and excluding MVC from Java EE will essentially force you over to the competitors like Spring MVC if you're doing server-side rendered applications, or you have to move to JSF, which is an entirely different thing. So to be able to continue to create server-side rendered applications with an action-based MVC framework on Java EE, we decided we want to go on with it, and we talked to some key people in Oracle, and after a while Oracle agreed to transfer the specification to the community. So in January we had this ballot in the executive committee where Oracle suggested that they want to transfer the spec leads from Oracle to the community, and that community turns out to be me. So Oracle actually gave me this code. I've got that's kind of cool. I got code from Oracle. I can take their license code and say, "Hey, it's mine," and that's pretty cool. And I'll show what we're going to do with it. And I did some YouTube clip about this, and I came up with @controller to the community. So this is a community. The community wanted this specification, and the community is going to deliver it. And I'm just happened to be there when Oracle looked for someone to transfer this application to. And let's look at what we're going to do with it. Some history first. The specification started in 2014, so it's been around for a while. And we had the expert group was formed around September, October the same year. And we had some good discussions and good progress. And we launched an early draft release once and twice in October 2015, just before Java 1 that year. And after that, it just went silent. So in the period in between there, let me see, okay. So go back to, in the period, it just continues here. Sorry about that. There you go. In the period between October 2015 and October 2016, in 1 year, there were no progress, apparently, from the outside in the specification. But we still worked. And one of the reasons why we could still work was that before this hiatus started, we moved everything to GitHub. We still had java.net as the official repository, but we had our GitHub organization as the working environment. So we could continue working on the specification, even though we didn't have access to the real source. And we did that, and we continued and discussed, and we kept it alive. And at Java 1 in 2016, we had some discussions with the key people in Oracle, and in January 2017, they transferred it to us. And the transfer was approved in January, and we thank Oracle for that. We're really grateful for getting this opportunity. In April, I got the signature from Thomas Curing that he signed the intellectual property over to me, and then we could actually start working. So we've done this for a little over a month now to get things set up, and we're setting up a new infrastructure, meaning that we are renaming our GitHub repo to be the source. So Java.net closed down a couple of weeks ago, and so GitHub is the answer for where we would do. And the next thing we had to do was to get rid of the Oracle licensing. That's kind of given by the agreement. And we discussed on the mailing list, which is open, everybody can contribute to the mailing list and listen in. We discussed which license is most appropriate for us. And we have decided on license. I'll get back to that. So what we're doing is we have done the migration from Java.net. Everything is done there. I brought in one of the other expert group members, Christian Kalpot. He's co-spec lead. So we're two people leading this together. And what we're going to do now is to revise the schedule, because we cannot deliver in the original plan what we had. So we're going to revise the schedule and get going with that. And we also want to really get some help from the Adopt the JSR program. Yeah, so this is done. Control it to the community, and we're going to Apache license. And what it means is that we are going to open source everything. And the specification has to be dual licensed, because it's going to be published on the JCP, so it has to have their JCP click-through license. But everything else is going to be Apache. And that also includes the TCK. And there are not very many specifications out there that are completely open source. There are a couple, like bean validations and CDI and the portlet bridge, for example, and probably a couple more. But we will join them in going completely open source. And in the future, I don't think it's appropriate that I'm the intellectual property owner of this. So I'll probably donate it to either Apache or Eclipse Foundation and get a foundation behind it. So, Adopt2JSR. Adopt2JSR is a way of Java community and Java user groups in particular to contribute. And the way it's done is that if you have a Java user group, or you start one, just register it with the community managers at Oracle, and it can be listed there, and just say that, hey, we want to adopt a JSR, and pick a JSR you want to adopt, for example, this one. And what we right now really want the contribution from is write code. Just write your web application and see, using this framework, and see, is it good enough as it is, or is there anything we're doing wrong, or are there any features that are missing that we need to be able to actually use this? All feedback is good. So take your Spring MVC application, port it to us, and see if we're doing a good job. And just feedback to us, either as issues in our GitHub issue tracker, or just ping us on the mailing list or Twitter or whatever. So feedback is wanted. Blog and tweet it and make noise about it. Make the community know that this is something we care about. And then the last item, we need a logotype. And you can see JSF has this cool, it's open source, it's voted on their mailing list. This is a security spec, the security Duke. This is bean validation. So we need some Duke symbolizing MVC. And if you do that, that's the easiest way of getting your name in the specification. Just get right in there as a contributor. So that's about the roadmaps and what's been going on and the politics and everything. So let's look at the technology. Any questions so far? Okay. So MVC is action-based MVC. And action-based means that the controller is defined by the application and not by the framework. And there isn't any standard Java EE implementation of this right now. And it's not a replacement for JSF. JSF is the other flavor of MVC, which is called component-based MVC. So let's look at these two flavors. A typical way of visualizing the MVC pattern is that some request comes in from your browser to some controller, which then updates the model and selects a view to render. And this view accesses the model to present whatever information the controller has set on it. In a component-based MVC, the controller is provided for you by the framework. So in JSF, you have the faces servlet, which is the controller. So you just implement the model on the view, and you're fine with that. Other component-based are, I don't know if they're actually very active anymore, but Wicket, Tapestry, Seam, those kind of frameworks. But JSF is probably the most well-known, and there are lots of component libraries like prime faces, ice faces, omnifaces, etc. As opposed to the action-based MVC, it's you as a developer that implements a controller. So you have more fine-grained control of what's actually going on. So you implement the controller, the model, and the view. And the other examples of this, the most well-known and most used is Spring MVC. You also have struts too, but that's kind of, you probably wouldn't start a new project with struts right now, but Spring MVC and us, that's pretty much comparable frameworks. One of our goals to this specification is to reuse the existing Java EE technologies. That means we need to run in a Java EE container. or at least a container that supports enough of the specifications we need to be able to run. And setting that as a requirement means that we can use the technologies for some of our components. For example, for the models in MVC, we're using CDI, bean validations, JPA, and what is provided by already. So we actually don't need to add anything to support the model concepts of MVC. For the views, we also want to reuse what's there. So we want to reuse JSPs and facelets. And we also want to make it pluggable to support more view technologies such as Mustache or Thime Leaf or whatever you want to create your view in. And the controller, there isn't really a concept for the controller in Java EE, so that's something we need to create. And that makes us over to a couple of key decisions, or actually it's one very important key decision, and that is we're building MVC on top of JAX-RS. The other alternative was to build it on top of Servlet. But after a long discussion in the expert group, and we had a vote going on around it, we landed on JAX-RS because it gives us more, so we need to do less. And personally, I think that's a pretty good choice. So I'll briefly click through a couple of slides with some code in it, and then I'll show the code in real life. So if you have a simple Java class called hello controller in this example, then we add the JAX-RS at path annotation to say that it's the hello segment of the URL we are listening to with this controller. So far it's just JAX-RS. The next thing is that we introduce a new annotation called @controller. That's where @controller to the community comes from. So this is new in MVC. And the @controller, as it's done here on class level, that means that every method in this class is a controller. It doesn't mean that the class is a controller, even though I've called it controller here. But it means that every method is a controller. You can also put the controller on the method level, and the rest of the methods in this class would then be regular JAX-RS resources. So if you want to, you can mix and match and have the same class handle both your REST request and your controller methods. And that's kind of the same way as Spring MVC does it, but they've done it the other way. They've built their REST support on top of MVC. So you have the @REST controller. That's something new they added in Spring 4. That's more or less what it is about the controller. For the views, we have some different options. If we have these, the controller we created in the last slide, and then we can use the JAX-RS @get to say that this is an HTTP GET coming into this controller, and we return the hello JSP. And this is where the effect of the @controller annotation comes in, because if in a regular JAX-RS resource, this is perfectly valid to have a JAX-RS, but this was actually return the text hello JSP to the browser as the body of the response. But in this case, we render the view defined by the JSP page. And that's what the @controller does, that we can return a string, and actually that's a view located in the webinf view folder in your application. We have other ways of doing it. We can return a viewable, so you can create it yourself if you want. We're actually thinking of removing the @viewable. We don't see the real use for that. You also have the option of going low-level JAX-RS and use the JAX-RS response and set any status you want, and the entity is the view you want to render. So all these are equivalent. We're also adding a new annotation, the @view annotation, which you can put on method level as it is here. And here you can see you can have a void method. That's not possible in JAX-RS today, but the at-controller orientation makes it possible. And you can also put the at-view annotation on the class level. And that is, if all these methods, if you have get, put, post, and delete, for example, and all of them render the same view, then to avoid to repeat yourself, you can have it on the class level and only have what's different for each method. So models. As I said, we are reusing or building on top of CDI, so we're supporting CDI. And this is kind of a typical message or greeting class, which has here a request scoped. So that means that this is available through a request. And this is the kind of the recommended approach of interacting with the model is to use a CDI, and this class, the greeting can just be injected in your controller, and the view will be able to access it. I'll show it in the code in a minute. If you, for some reason, yeah, I'll show here how it's done. You have the controller with the at-get. We inject the greeting as we would inject any CDI beam. And we can set the message on the greeting. This is from my presentation in February, so I've been lazy updating the slides. And then in the view, you can access this greeting message, which is the get message method on the CDI beam. And this is perfectly well in JSP or any other templating engine that supports CDI. But if you, for some reason, have something that doesn't support CDI, we've also added some convenience model for you. So you have same controller, but this time we inject a models object. And this is just a extension of a hash map. So it's nothing weird about it. It's called models because model is already taken by an interface in JSF. So if you inject models like that, you can have model put and a key value pair here, and your view will be able to access it. So let's look at some code. Any questions so far? Okay. So to get started with this, I'll show you first our webpage. We have mvcspec.org. It's a new webpage where we're continuously building it. Here's the Hello World example just given for you, and the latest official release, which you add to your Maven dependency. We have some news where we're starting writing things. Everything here is pretty new, so we're working on it. But this is where you typically find all information you need. We're also on the Java EE GitHub. And as you see, this is a read-only mirror, but we're very happy to actually be a part of Java EE, even though we're not in Java EE 8. We're still considered a Java EE technology. Our GitHub repo is where we do our actual work is the MVC spec. And this is where you get your logotype if you give us one. So it will be visible. We have the specification, we have the web page, we have the TCK is going to be here, and OSARC, which is the reference implementation. We also have a proposals repo, which is open for anybody. And that's if you have something you're working on that we don't support, just add it here and we can look at it. So the code then. The POM file is pretty simple. You need the Java EE dependency since we're a Java EE technology, and in addition to that, you also need the MVC API, and you need the OSARC reference implementation. I've also added some Docker stuff here. That's just for if you want to be able to run it yourself. So this is what you need, the Java EE dependency and these two. So in the code then, the hello controller, in this case just, it's the same I had on the slides. It returns a hello JSP page. And the hello JSP is located in the webinf folder, webinf view, and only writes hello world. So if I run this application like this, there you go. It prints hello world. So let's do something more interesting than this. First of all, we'd like to have some sort of message to write. So let's inject the model. Like this. And then let's add a message to the model. Let's call it message. And the value can be, oh, we can Warsaw. So here I just inject the model and I put the message to the model. And then in the JSP page, I can now use this one and just add the message like this. So now I'm accessing the model object which I've updated from the controller. So if I now run this one, it should say hello Warsaw. So that's kind of the way you interact between the controller and the view. So let's do some more advanced. And I've cheated a little bit, so I'm opening another project here. The configuration is exactly the same. I've just done some little bit preparations there. It's more or less the same as the one I had, just another text. So if we run this one, it should do the same as the previous one. But let's add an input form so we can read some information. So when I access this page, I will get a form. I can write a name, for example, and then I can say hello to that name. So what I'll do then is to return a form. And I've created a form here we can use, which is very simple. It just has a input field, a name, and a submit button. I'll come back to later what these commented lines means. So what I'm doing now is to I'm just showing the form page when I run this one. So if I run it, it now shows my form. And if I write something here, it will say method not allowed because I haven't created anything that listens to the post method yet. So let's create a post. So I'll use Jaxor as that post and have a public string do stuff. Okay. And return the hello JSP. So what I do now is to get the view from the hello. So if I write something here and take submit, it will redirect me to the hello page, and it doesn't display anything. And that is because I haven't said anything yet. Because if you remember, I'm reading the message here. I can write hello in front of it here just to have it the same. So I'm writing hello and then a message. But since I haven't said a message yet, nothing is displayed. So if I run it now, it should say hello and nothing, even though I'm saying Duke. So it will say hello and nothing. And you can see I'm putting the message here in the get but this is request scoped, right? So I have it in a request. So this one doesn't actually do anything. So what I need to do here, I want to capture this name. I want to say hello to Duke, right? So then I can use the at form param annotation from JAX-RS. And as you remember, the name of from the form was name. So the name is what I'm getting, and it is a string called name. Then I can put this to my model, and it was a message, and then name. So now I'm getting the name from the post the form I'm posting in, and I'm setting it on the model and returning to the view, which will access it. So if I now go and say Duke here, it should say hello to the Duke. So it's pretty simple and straightforward, since we're just relying on JAX-RS and everything is provided for us. So the only actual MVC thing I'm doing here is to add the @controller annotation. Otherwise, it's plain JAX-RS. So let's give this a better name. Call it name. And the form should say, the hello page. Let's say name there, like this. So let's add some security here. Anybody heard of cross-site request forgery? That is, if you're transferring money to your bank or between your bank accounts and somebody is in between and you think you're setting it into your friend's account, but you're actually doing it to the bad guy, then somebody has captured your request and doing a cross-site because you're posting to another place than you thought you were doing. So let's say how we can protect us against that. Luckily, we have a concept called the CSRF protection. By default, this is implicit right now. We are probably going to make it explicit. Explicit means that you have to actually annotate your methods that it's going to be protected. Implicit means that all methods are protected, and none, but it means that you don't have it. So this one is explicit. The other ones are off and implicit. But since it's explicit, I can add the CSRF valid annotation to my post. And by doing this, I'm actually saying that when somebody posts this method, I'm validating a token from the form that has to be rendered from myself. So I won't accept it if it's somebody else's. So if I now say hello to Duke from here, it should say validation of CSRF failed due to missing field. So then I protect myself against some bad guys trying to say hello to Duke with their own kind of way. So the way I can fix this is in my form class, I can add this CSRF token. And this is available to me from the MVC context object. And I CSRF name and token, and as long as I add this hidden field, which is then when this page is rendered from the server, it generates this token, and when the form comes back, it checks that the token is valid. So then nobody can say hello to Duke for me. So when I now say hello to Duke, it will say hello to Duke because it's valid. Let's see what more. Are we on time? Yes. We also have added locale support. So I'll just inject the MVC context. And from the MVC context, I have available some stuff. For example, the get language or get locale, where I can get the get language or whatever I wanted to get from the locale. It's just standard. So the let me see, the language is a string, so I can have string language equals. So I get the language from the locale, and I can add this to a model. But there, and then I can. This is kind of a weird example, but since you probably wouldn't do it this way, but then I can say hello in some language. So if I do this request again, say hello to Duke, it will say hello in English. And that's because my browser is set to English. And if I look at what's actually going on here, if I refresh this page, you'll see that in my request header, I have exact language English. It's not very readable there, but let me see if I can. Yeah. So it use the accept language attribute in the HTTP request, and that's the default implementation. You can also implement your own way of doing this. For example, if you have an URL called say hello.com. Then if this is your kind of scheme of using the language, you can implement a provider or a resolver to do that. Or if your way of doing it is, say, hello.com/pl, then you would implement that way of doing it. So it's kind of up to you as an implementer to choose whichever resolve mechanism you want to have. But the default one we're providing is to use the accept header in your HTTP request. And I'll show you by just manipulating this and setting it to something else. So I'll just set it to Klingon and then do this request again, and you see it say hello in Klingon. And that's because my request header now says Klingon. So it's a very simple approach of just detecting a language. And then you can use like bean ventilation and other stuff based on the locale. So in Poland you have a different date format than in the US, for example. So then you can validate input differently. So we also have defined a set of events. So I can have a method in my controller or somewhere in my application. Let's just call this foo, and let this one observe. Here we're using the add observes annotation from CDI, and then we can have the before controller event, for example. And we can write something out here before. So and the same way, we have 5 different events called. We also have the after controller event. So now you'll see in my log file when I execute this one that it's going to write before and after. So if I refresh this one, resubmit the form, you can see, okay, I need to redeploy this one. Here I'm adding into adding some stuff to the CDI. So my application server requires me to run again. So if I resubmit this form, okay, it's not there yet. There. Okay, I need to run it. So here you should see that it writes before and after, because this is before and after the controller has been executed. And the same will happen when I say hello to Duke. It will write before and after again. And we have five different events. It's before and after view rendered, and before and after controller, and it's also a redirect event. So I'll show you quickly a little bit more advanced example, which involves a redirect and a new scope field added. So I'll close this one. In this example, I'll just run it first. I'm having a form here where you can reserve seats at the restaurant. So Duke is going with a couple of friends to this afternoon, and he wants to sit outside because he likes the sun. And it gets a reservation number. The problem here is what happens if I click refresh in my browser. So if I click refresh here, you see I get the confirm form resubmission. So I get it resubmits my form. And when it does that, I get a new reservation number. So now Duke is going twice to this restaurant. And this is something you want to avoid. And the usual way of doing this is the post redirect get pattern. So that you post to a controller that redirects you, sends a redirect to the browser, which sends you to the confirmation controller. I'll show you this in a slide afterwards, but first in code. So what we have here is I have my reservation controller, which here is using a little bit more advanced stuff. You can see I can inject any service. It could have been a EJB or anything. This service is just generating the reservation number. I have messaging, and I'm injecting some called binding results here. And binding result is provided by MVC, and that's something we can hook into the binding errors, bean validation, and binding errors from the form into the submission. So for example, here, if I go to the first page and I don't write anything, I get size must be and enter validate and all these validation errors. This is something I get from the binding errors or the validation errors that bean validation kicks in. So if you look at here I have the @valid annotation from bean validation. That means that this bean I'm submitting, the reservation form bean, has to be a valid bean. And here I have some properties. I'm saying you have to have 2 characters in the name, for example. And you can be at least 1 person, but not more than 10, and you need a date. So this is bean validation. So we hook into and support bean validation out of the box without doing anything. So what happens here is that since the JAX-RS comes with the exception mapper, so that when you get bean validation error in your JAX-RS, you will get a validation exception that is thrown to the framework, and it's kind of a catch-all version. So you will get a bad request. Or something. Here you have a fine-grained control since you're creating the controller yourself. So I'm saying, don't do this, JAX-RS. Let me handle it. I can do this in XML as well, but I'm saying to the JAX-RS, hey, I'm aware of these validation errors. I'll handle it myself. And then I can check if binding results is failed, and then I can do something else. And I just return to the reservation page, and in the reservation page I show these error messages. And if everything goes fine, I save the reservation. That's where I get the reservation number, and I return to the confirmation JSP. And this is where the problem is. I want to redirect it to use the post redirect get, and to be able to do that, my reservation, or not this one, my reservation that I'm creating cannot be request scoped. I need to scope it so it survives through a request. I'll show you what happens if I don't do that. That is, I go into this is the reservation controller, and rather than just saying, go to the confirmation JSP, I say redirect me to confirmation. And confirmation is handled by the confirmation controller, which then renders the confirmation JSP. So if I run this one, just refresh. I say Duke with a friend today, and go. You see, nothing happened. Why didn't I get anything? That's because if let's look at it in the network log. So if I go here, reservation new, I say Duke there today, and save it. You see, I get a post to the new controller, which then redirects me with a 303 to the confirmation, which does a get. That means that I've lost my request scope bean. So to handle this, I need to make my reservation bean be able to survive a redirect. And that's why we've added the redirect scope. So by doing this, this bean will survive a redirect. If I now go in here, say reservation new, let's clear the log, say Duke, and do the save stuff. And you see I get the reservation through here. And I'm still doing the post redirect get. If I now hit refresh in my browser, what will happen then? Well, first of all, I don't get the form submission because I'm submitting on the confirmation page now, right? I'm doing a get on confirmation. And I lost my reservation number. And that's because of my implementation that I'm only holding it for a redirect. So the scope of a redirect is a post, redirect, get, and then it's dead. Let's show you one cool thing more if you want to get started. A guy called Gaurav Gupta in India has created a tool called Jedict. It's a generator for Java EE8. It has a lot of tutorials getting started, a lot of stuff. So try this out. I'll show. This is an older version, but I think it's going to be okay. This is a JPA modeler where I can model my database object. And here I have all database properties. I can set bean validation and everything available from me from Java EE. I won't do anything of that now, but here you can right-click and click Generate Stores. And you'll get a dialog here prompting you for things. And MVC is one of the things you can generate. You can also create an Angular application with a REST endpoint, but let's stick to MVC. You can also create a Docker container with this stuff for you. And you can set some properties here, looking at the different events, or set the cross-site request forgery properties. But just keep it default and click Generate. And what it does now is to generate a lot of code for you. So what I'm getting here is a lot of controllers. As you can see, you can see it's using the same concepts I've done in my examples here. It's generating and generating database code, everything, and we're up and running. And after generated, you can just click Run. And it will deploy to I'm using Pyara here. You can use any nightly build of Glassfish 4.1. I think it's also included in Glassfish 5. There is, in this version of the tool I'm using, there is a small bug, but I think it's fixed it in the next one. It's these 2 pages has to be in the web root. Then it should be able to display. Oh, did I put it right? I think maybe I have to run it again. There you go. Oh, it worked earlier today. Why don't it work now? Oh, there's one more thing. This is kind of the things he needs to fix. There you go. Now you can see here it renders a responsive web page. The entities I had with the recipes and the cookbooks and stuff are here. If I do the response stuff like this, you can see it's mobile friendly. Shows you it's pretty cool how it's doing it. So you get everything up and running, and it's fully functional. And I actually store things in the database. You can see I've run this demo a couple of times and stored some things there. I can do some. I can add some stuff. Let's call it Duke. Duke, and there, and submit it. So you see I have 4 here, and my dashboard is also updated. So it is a fully functional, and it's one click, and you're up after creating your model, more or less. You can generate this JPA model from the database as well. So if you have a database model, you can generate up all these with 2 clicks and NetBeans. And then you can show this to a customer and say, hey, we can do this for you. It's not finished yet, but this is how you can prototype a solution pretty quickly for them. So I think that's what I had to demo. We have 7 minutes more for questions and stuff, so I'll just return to my slides. Okay. There. So as I showed you, the binding results has a lot of method. You can differentiate if the validation or the binding stuff is what you want. I showed you the post redirect get problem. This is the post where you post on the reservation controller and returns OK. And if you resubmit the form, you'll resubmit the form. And with the redirect, you can do the post redirect get pattern where you do a post to a reservation controller, you update the model, you redirect to the browser with a reference to the confirmation controller, and it returns the confirmation page. And this is the post redirect get pattern. So to sum up, MVC is action-based MVC. It builds on existing Java EE technologies. We're building it on top of JAX-RS. The project page is mvcspec.org. We're on GitHub. The organization is MVC Spec. We also have the read-only mirror on the Java EE organization, MVC Spec. The samples from this presentation is in my GitHub. And it's all powered by the Java community process. And we're doing some talks about MVC. I've done a couple of this year. I'm doing one more in Germany in June. And I hope to add to this list. So, any questions? Comments? I have a real tattoo of Duke. I have some fake tattoos here. So anybody with a question, or if you are want to have a fake tattoo sticker here, come here and talk to me. I also have some Snoopy stickers. So questions are rewarded. Any questions?